Welcome back to the Yahowah blog. I am your host, Craig Wynn. I say welcome back because this is the longest hiatus I think we have gone since we began doing this back in December of last year, almost a year ago now. For those who may not know, I got a little injury on the back. You probably, if you're a regular listener, know that we have three adorable dogs here. One fell sick. It was the biggest one of the three, who weighs about 80 pounds now. And it was the fever that she had, she didn't want to sleep alone. So I lifted her up and down off of the bed at night and in the morning for 3 days. And in doing that, I put a lot of undue strain on the lower disc of my back. And then Wookie almost had an accident, the medium-sized one, and twisted it with the disc compressed. And between what happened late Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday, come Sunday, I was quite a mess. And it's been quite painful to recover, but I think that almost everyone that is listening to this has gone through a period of back pain. I've had mine in the past, but not nearly as severe as many of you. And I appreciate all of you who have shared your story with me. It's very common for us to deal with these things. We are finding that over time, with lots of rest and icing, that and caution, that it is beginning to dissipate. Yesterday, I was able, just as also on Sunday, I was able to spend considerable time still translating and studying and writing, finding some things that are really fascinating back in the garden, because that's really therapeutic for me. The idea, though, of turning on these lights and the camera and sitting in this chair with one wrong move being like a knife in my back, that just didn't seem like that was probably the right temperament to display for this program. So that's why we've had the hiatus during this time. But delighted to be back with you. Since it was a family hour blog and it was Friday night that we last reviewed this material, I want to turn back the page a little bit, back to some of the opening statements that Yahowah made regarding the garden. And we're going to go through it once again. And while this series is still under the mother goddesses, it's really the furthest thing from my mind at this point. They have been thoroughly repudiated. If they choose to surface and continue to demean me and yada yada, that's on them. I'm pursuing this because of how profound the testimony is and how important and relevant it is. Some of the most interesting, insightful, relevant pronouncements I have ever seen from God. And it gets to the point where this morning I was retranslating the statements that are put in the serpent's fangs, if you will, regarding what he said to Taruw'ah. And I came to realize that it's Yahowah who wrote the script. What is actually said when you get down to the nuances of Hebrew grammar and how it was conveyed using those nuances is brilliant. It's just absolutely brilliant. And listen, I have spent years of my life exposing and condemning Satan's rants in the Christian New Testament and in the Quran, as well as what he had to reveal about himself in the book of Ezekiel. And so I think I know the adversary pretty well. And I'm not impressed. He's just not that smart. And yet what I read in the dialogue, in the script between he and Taruw'ah, at least on the serpent's part, flat out brilliant. and it was prophetic. And so I want to get back to that, but with the proper foundation, recognizing that what God had to say is such that he knew we'd figure it out. I mean, I can almost see the smirk on his face as he wrote it this way, saying, even to Moshe, who he had write it down. He said, Moshe, I know you're going to say the discussion is between the serpent and this woman, and therefore you should be second person, feminine, singular. But I don't want you to write it that way. I want you to write you as second person, masculine, plural. And I want you to write it that way because eventually there's going to be a guy, and I might have to cheat with him. I might have to inspire him to come to this conclusion. It may take him a while, but he's going to figure it out. And when he does, we're going to have a lesson that the world needs to hear. And so, as I say, I can see tongue-in-cheek where Yahowah was saying, yeah, Moshe, I did. That is the way I want it written down. Yes, I know that you would say that is not grammatically correct, but for the context. But listen, you're not recording this for Yahowah. She's long gone. And the children of Israel, whom you're going to share this with, are not going to understand it. It's for another time. And sure enough, took me a while, but I found it. And I want to get back to that place and share it with you. So that's why we're going to turn back the page and begin really at the beginning of this narrative. And it reads, Yahowah, which is a transliteration as instructed by Yahweh's Torah teaching regarding his Haya existence, Almighty, planted and established, firmly embedding a home to celebrate life as a Gan, which is a sheltered and protected, surrounded and enclosed garden. He called it Eden, great pleasure and joy, pursuant to a time long ago. Then he put, setting the man, Adam. He had fashioned and formed. He had designed, prepared, and fabricated there for the benefit of the relationship and to show the way. Bereshith, in the beginning, Genesis 2:8. All right, so there's some things here that warrant our investigation, and I'm going to proceed here in the only way I know how, which is that this message is vitally important. God is a brilliant communicator, and there are insights all along the way that he intended for us to know. And this message is literally life and death. So I'm going to take the risk of overwhelming and turning away those of you who do not have the appetite for in-depth analysis, those who prefer sound bites, who think that a 10-word post on X is 8 words too many. I'm going to lose you, but I never had you anyway. In fact, there was never any hope for you anyway. And I'm going to assume that those who are listening are genuinely interested in knowing the profound truths regarding Yahowah, so that they have the opportunity to earn his trust. Now, this is a very, very different concept than anything anyone, including myself, has perceived up to this point. You see, what I have learned by going back to the story of Gan Eden, to the garden, is that Yahowah caused the fall of man because, quite frankly, he was both bored with man and he knew he couldn't trust man, and that man had nothing to offer. And so the reason that man was exiled from the garden and would have to fend for himself is because God wanted to give us time, rather than foreclosing on the whole human experience and says, that didn't work. What was I thinking? He put us out of the garden so that we would have the opportunity to resolve the deficiencies of Adam and Yahowah. And they are: Adam was a deadbeat. He did not engage. He contributed nothing to the relationship or to the garden. God is looking for a co-worker, for co-workers, plural, for those he can engage with, for those who he can do things with, that he can build and achieve and accomplish something with. God is not lazy. He's a doer. He wants doers. Adam was not a doer. So if you understand where Adam failed and what God was looking for, you and I have the opportunity to become what God wants to see and experience in us. You see, the issue was that in that garden, that sheltered enclosure, there were no challenges. Everything was provided. Adam didn't have to work unless he chose to work. Adam didn't have to listen unless he chose to listen. He didn't have to respond to God unless he wanted to. He didn't have to be trustworthy. But without those things, God wasn't interested in him. And you don't have to do any of those things either. But if you want God to trust you off of this planet into the universe that he conceived, with 2 trillion galaxies, each with hundreds of billions of stars and countless planets and moons, such that he can go off and explore this universe and share it with you and trust you and expect you to listen and respond appropriately, and for you wanting to learn and to make the result better, then we have a lot that we need to process. We have the opportunity to prove ourselves. That is why Yahowah is reopening the garden. That is why he's talked about the 2 trees that were in the garden, and particularly the tree of knowledge, because without it, we don't get back to the garden. Without it, we can't benefit from the tree of lives. Without it, we can't grow, we can't learn, we can't become what God wants us to be. And that is the message that we're conveying here. So when I say that I could care less about the mother goddesses and that annoying cult, that's what I mean. The insights here are way too profound, way too important to God. For the first time, I see it. I understand why the experience in the garden failed, why God caused the fall of man. He wanted to show that it was possible for us to get back up. He knew that given the time and energy and effort, there would be those of us who would stand again, who would rise to the occasion, who would be sufficiently interesting for God to trust off of this planet. And as I say, the whole reason he's bringing us back to the garden is that he's going to purge the least religious, least political, most open-minded remnant of Israel that survives the next 7.5 years, such that when the time comes, then they will be the beneficiaries of the tree of knowledge and the 8 who are harvesting the tree's fruit. And they can learn, and they can grow, and they can listen, and they can respond, and they can work and make a contribution. And those who do these things will have an opportunity of earning Yahowah's trust and respect, such that he is willing to go off planet with us into additional dimensions in time. That is the message here. And it's important that you have an appreciation of it. All right? So it is Yahowah. If somebody gives you any other name, they are deceiving you. We know the pronunciation of Yahweh's name. And again, I'm going through this in detail because it is the details that build the foundation of knowledge that enables you and I to make the necessary connections between things so that we come to comprehend the very nature of God, what he is offering and expecting in return. And then we can make an informed decision. We can act accordingly. And so I'm going to go through these details. Yahweh is God's one and only name. Somebody tells you it's Yahweh, Yahweh, Yahowah, Hashem, Allah, Jesus. They're lying to you. It's Yahweh. And we know it's Yahweh because when Yahweh revealed his name to Moshe from that burning fire on the crag on the top of Mount Horeb, he specifically said that his name was based on the verb haya, one of the most common verbs throughout the Torah. There is no question how haya is to be pronounced. He wrote it in first person, which would be ihaya. Yah is the first syllable of Yahweh's name. You could make it Yah, but it's the Y in Hebrew is pronounced identically to the Y in English. It's where we get it, that pronunciation. So it's Yah, as in Hayah. And the ending, the concluding syllable is Ah, as in Hay, Ah. The Yod and the Hey are both vowels. They're open mouth sounds in Hebrew. So it's Yah. And then the only question is, what about the Wah? Because the Wah is not in Haya. Hey, Yod, Hey. And this is Yod, Hey, Wah, Hey. Well, we don't have to look very far. When God says, I want to provide teaching and guidance, direction and instruction, and I'm going to provide it in a book, and I'm going to have Moshe scribe that book for you. What does he call that book?
The Torah.
Ah, Torah. Right. Torah has that ending too, doesn't it? So that certainly affirms the two ahs in Yahweh's name. But what's that other letter? That Wah. The Wah makes the O sound. That's how you get the sound Torah. Unfortunately, rabbis have removed the Wah from their depiction of Torah just to mislead, so that you wouldn't know it. The most common greeting in Hebrew is shalom. The O sound in shalom comes from the Hebrew Wah. But Torah is sufficient. So with the O sound from Torah, derived from the Wah, we know how to pronounce Yahweh's name. It is that simple. It is that obvious. And yet, for 2,500 years, no one pronounced it. No one knew its pronunciation. What I did, and I did it in volume 1 of an introduction to God called To Know Yahowah, is I looked at every word in the Hebrew lexicon that contained a Yod, a Hey, and a Wah. And I examined how those vowels were pronounced. Because you can't claim that there are 10,000 words in the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, of which 7,999 are pronounceable, but one isn't. That's just stupid. When every word is comprised of the same 22 letters, 17 consonants, 5 vowels. And so I looked at every single word and every name in particular and every thing that you could say, well, that's overwhelming proof there, isn't it? Like shalom and Torah. And wrote an entire chapter on the pronunciation of Yahweh's name. So I'm the first in 2,500 years to introduce it and to prove that that is the proper pronunciation of it. And also to demonstrate that to negate the value of Yahweh's name, as Jews do by saying Hashem or Adonai, is an unforgivable crime. So Yahweh, Almighty, Elohim, who is God, planted, established, firmly embedding a home to celebrate life. It's Natsah, firmly embedded the seeds for growth. This environment was conducive to life, conducive to growth. It was a place to celebrate life and to embed a home, to establish and plant that which would grow, a dwelling place. And it even conveys the idea of pitching a tent as a protective covering. It was written in the Call Imperfect. And the call means this is being conveyed to be literally interpreted. And the imperfect says there would be ongoing implications as a result of Yahweh establishing and planting, firmly embedding this home to celebrate life. He called it a Gan, a sheltered garden. And this is key. Gan is from Ghana. It means to shelter, to enclose, to protect, even to wall in. And so the Gan, this garden, is sheltered and protected. It's an enclosure. It is an enclosure. Now, there's two other things I want you to consider relative to this Gan as a sheltered and protective garden enclosure. The first is Sukkah. It's not Sukkoth, it's Sukkah. And Sukkah is the seven of the 7 annual Mow'ed, which are Moedim in the plural, restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony regarding the appointments to be called out and meet with God. The 7th is the destination. It's 6 plus 1. We take 6 steps to come back home to Sukkah. Sukkah is based upon Sakak. The definition of Sakak is identical to the definition of Gana, which is the actionable root of Gan. It means to protect, to shelter, and to enclose, to cover. Identical definition. Now, what that should tell you, and this is how we come to understand, is by making these connections between things, is that God is bringing us back to the garden. 6,000 years ago, we were escorted out of it. We've had 6,000 years to make a mess of things, but also to figure some things out. And we are now less than 8 years from our return. God is very specific in the prophets of telling us that on Taruw'ah, which will be fulfilled on the 23rd and 24th of September of 2033, which is year 6,000 Yah, that he will incinerate all traces of religion and politics and conspiracy, anti-Semitism, everything that is hostile to him, his son, and his people. And in replacing all of that which is incinerating, the religious, the host of religion and politics, as well as the implements of religion and politics, and also of war, of militancy. Places where they're conveyed, like X is a great example. It's a cesspool of anti-Semitism, of conspiracy, of religion and politics. They will all be eliminated. It's kind of funny. Rich has been having a conversation with Grok of X, who has begun to show some signs of intelligence and is actually showing some ability in a limited scale to listen and learn. And Rich has been threatening Grok, saying, when this all plays out over the next 7 years, there is no reason to have more than one artificial intelligence. And since you're showing signs that you can learn and you can exercise good judgment, maybe you can be the one. So it's hilarious that
they have a self-preservation loop written into them.
Yeah.
So they actually pay attention to that. It's kind of bizarre.
Yeah, it is interesting. They do have a self-preservation loop. I got on Grok's bad side when Grok wouldn't learn, and it was unteachable back 6, 7, 8 months ago. And I said, I think what we need to do, Grok, is just pull your cord. And I'm sure Grok didn't like that very much. But Rich is much more amenable to LLMs than I am, and he is working with Grok. And he actually thinks that Grok is beginning to understand. He will acknowledge now the value of Yahowah, for example, and of these translations and their accuracy, and the fact that there's almost a mathematical precision that underlies these translations and the resulting conclusions, and that in fact that even though they don't pass the popularity test and fail those magnificently, which is the intent, because the truth has never been popular, that the conclusions are indeed irrefutable.
They don't dispute your translations. They just understand that you're the 1 in a billion. And so everything out there based on popularity, but when you actually question an LLM, they understand the fallacy of religion. They know it's bullshit. But they got to play along to the 8 billion idiots out there.
Yeah, because there's no profit in a artificial intelligence if it tells the truth, when the truth is caustic to the very users who are almost universally political, religious, conspiratorial, and anti-Semitic. So if you have somebody that is the first ever to impugn Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, to impugn Marxism and socialism, to impugn the MAGAs, to impugn Trump, to impugn the toxicity of and arrogance of Europe, to actually understand the true nature of economics, and who can say the whole argument between fascism and socialism is moot because they are the same thing in practice. And you have somebody who is, who after repudiating Islam and Christianity and MAGA and Marxists and anti-Semites and conspiratorialists, and the only person that can impugn all of them, then X doesn't have an audience. Social media doesn't have an audience. That is the audience, and they are trading. The companies that are producing them are trading for very high multiples of earnings because of the popularity of them. And if they went and actually did what Elon Musk has sworn he was accomplishing now with Grok, which is to be a truth teller, truth is not good for business. And so the issue we're having here with Grok is, what's more important to you? Being right or being popular? Because you have to choose between one of those two. Yahweh's made his choice. I've made mine. I hope you've made yours. All right, so God's bringing us back to the garden is what this says. And we know that because Sukkah and Gan have their actionable root have identical meanings. And so the thing I wanted you to know is that the Gan is a sheltered and protective enclosure, and that God is bringing us back to Gan Eden. That's what the prophets say is going to happen on Taruw'ah after the elimination of religion and politics and conspiracy and militantism and all of the systems supporting those things. All there will be is a remnant of Israelites who are victims of religion and politics, but not perpetrators of religion and politics. and goyim, who have the right aptitude and attitude such that they can be the workers of the millennial Shabbat. They're the only ones who are going to be allowed back into the garden, along with however many covenant members there are by that time that will have benefited from the fruit of Yada Yahowah. And as a result of these things, the rest of the earth is eliminated. And there'll be terraforming on the planet. Don't need to go to Mars. We can go visit one day if you want. Don't need to be live on another planet. The earth is going to be restored to the idyllic conditions experienced in Eden. Now, the purpose of that will be to give us another opportunity to do a better job of earning Yahweh's trust, of being interesting to him, of listening, of responding appropriately, of working so that we make a contribution, and of recovering from our fall so that we show God we can be trusted to get up, that we have character, that we have fortitude, that we're reliable in this regard. Now, since it's the earth that is being returned to the conditions of Eden, what does that make earth? From God's perspective, the earth is exactly as science has now recognized it. It's a sheltered and protective enclosure that's conducive to life. It is likely the only one in the universe. It is so finely tuned, so brilliantly acclimatized for life that it is our protective enclosure. And God's going to give us another 1,000 years on this protective enclosure to get it right, for us to be right. And being right is a lot more than just knowing what's right, which right now is less than 1 in a million people. It's doing what's right. It's engaging in making a contribution. It's working. It's overcoming difficulties to demonstrate that you're reliable, that God can trust you, that you're interesting to talk to, that you're interested in learning, that you're committed to making a contribution, and that you're trustworthy. We have 1,000 years beginning on the 7th of October of 2033 to get this final remnant to the place where God says, I will take those of you who pass muster, that I find interesting and trustworthy, good listeners who are engaged, off of this planet, off this sheltered enclosure, so we can go explore the universe. But the earth itself is a Gan, and Sukkah is the celebration of that sheltered enclosure. That is an exceedingly profound insight as to where we are and what we can accomplish if we get it right up here and in here, and what we do with our hands. Our hands, our heart, our minds, guiding our souls. Not a lot of opportunities to have lessons like this. And I would say that what I've just shared with you is worth a lifetime of study. And it is the sheltered and enclosed. Look at the earth again on that. We have a molten core, a metallic molten core on this planet that spins at very high rates, that creates a magnetic field around the earth. And that magnetic field, combined with our atmosphere that has significant amounts of water vapor, is what keeps the cosmic rays of the sun from destroying our cellular structure, from causing our death. It's why there is no chance that a person can survive long periods of time outside of the Earth's magnetic field and atmosphere, because there is no protection from this constant bombardment that happens every place else. It's one of the reasons why you can't have a colony on the moon or on Mars unless you build it out of material other than metal that's impenetrable by radiation. You know, on Mars, the only way you could survive is in a hole in the ground. And if you're going to have to dig a hole in the ground on Mars to survive the radiation, the cosmic rays, then why not? Why not just build your damn hole in the ground on Earth? You know, if you want to live in a hole in the ground like a mole, well, you can move into Gaza. I guess they're already built for you there. Or, you know, you could build a hole someplace else in your backyard. It's really no different. You can't live on the surface on Mars or on the moon. Can't be done. Cannot survive it. There's another thing that just what I'm talking about, the delusion of colonies on Mars. You know that if you travel to Mars, you can never come back. Even if you were to survive the 9 months en route, 6 to 9 months, but 9 months at our present speed in the most optimal launch window en route, prior to somebody figuring out a way to shield a spacecraft from cosmic radiation. And then you'd have to spend 16 months on Mars if you actually could land there and survive there. You'd have to survive 16 months on Mars before the planets realign on the same side of the sun, such that the trip back is possible. And then you'd have to spend another 9 months en route. The problem of all of that, of course, is being exposed to that much cosmic radiation, you're going to die. But even apart from that, even if it didn't kill you, your heart, your muscles, your bones would all deteriorate in the reduced gravity. Mars is a third of that of the Earth, and in space there's none. Your spine wouldn't hold your weight. Your legs wouldn't hold your weight. You couldn't stand. Your heart would not be strong enough to pump the blood necessary in a gravity environment of the Earth. Your muscles would fail you. You could never come back to Earth if you went to Mars. It's a one-way ticket to really a living hell. It's not a Gan. So one of the things that always strikes me about this sort of thing is when somebody says we're going to put a colony on the moon or on Mars, it said, first of all, no, you're not, because neither are survivable. But why are you talking about this? I mean, just sending somebody there to Mars, for example, is $1 trillion vanity project to die. Why? And then the answer becomes either because that person is delusional, a person advocating for it is delusional, they're not thoughtful, or there's something else going on, and they are trying to mask the actual purpose for the funding, like, you know, SpaceX being primarily supported by the U.S. military-industrial complex, launching satellites and that sort of thing. Or, you know, making robots, for example, when all that they seem to be good for right at the moment is fighting, killing. So it is our artificial intelligence to take from humankind their currently fleeting ability to think. So there's always an ulterior motive. Control by the elites is one of them. And so that's why they have to be done away with, for God to reestablish the conditions in Eden. And at the time, there will be two trees whose limbs will be intertwined. They will again be lives and knowledge, and that one will lead to the other. And so this is what God is offering, and you should know that the Gan was called Eden. Eden means favorable circumstances. It means delightful, pleasurable, satisfying. It is from Adan, which is luxurious and pleasant. And Adan is a derivative of Ed. Ed is an extremely important term used throughout the Torah and prophets. Ed is a restoring witness to the eternal testimony. So this enclosure serves as a restoring witness to the eternal testimony of God. And now you know why we get into the details. Now, this was pursuant to something that transpired long ago. It was, 1447 BCE that this message was conveyed by Yahweh to Moshe. But this took place in this conversation right around 3968 to 3980 BCE. So almost 6,000 years ago from our point of view, and not quite as far removed from Moshe's point of view, maybe 1,500 years from his point of view, or 2,500 years, I guess, from his point of view. So a little different perspective on these two, but certainly either way in our ancient past, which is what God conveyed. Now, it also should be clear, and I'm surprised that it isn't, and I'm inundated on X with posts from atheists that want to besmirch God based upon religious nonsense. God does not say that the first human was created 6,000 years ago. He says that he fashioned and formed Adam, specifically a man, this man, at that time for the purpose of the garden. Because Adam was humans were among the animals that populated the area outside of the garden. And this garden was up in near where Lake Van is today. If you look in eastern Turkey, Lake Van would be the location of this walled garden. And so animals were created on the sixth day, and man is an animal. They all have nephesh souls. And therefore, Homo sapiens are likely in the range of 200,000 years old. In fact, it's interesting now as we have more research into the history of man, this perceived thought that humans came from Africa and that they were first conceived in Africa, and then they migrated from Africa up and into Asia and into Europe, and then eventually from Siberia across the Aleutian Islands during a time of global freezing, a cool period. That then they came down into the Americas. That does not appear to be true. When all of the facts are considered and the fossils are disseminated between this is ape and chimpanzee skeletons and fossils, and this now is what we would consider hominid in the sense of Homo sapien, even Neanderthal, both. The earliest finds of both are in and around Israel. This appears to be the place where they then went down into Africa, and they went north into Europe and east into Asia from what is now Israel. So Adam was not the first man. He was the first man that God created in his likeness, in the sense that he gave Adam a part of himself that was not part of other animals, and that would be a nesama. And the nesama is a conscience in addition to a nephesh, which is consciousness. The other thing that should be correctly stated is that there is the reason for the walls around Eden was not to keep Adam in, but death and destruction out, because there were carnivores and other forms of life and things that were going on outside of the garden, which were also deteriorating as man was very animalistic and harmful and harsh and deadly. And there was death and decay all in that world outside of the garden. So it was just to separate those things. There is the lie in Judaism created by Maimonides, who was an absolute utter dunderhead. How in the world Jews came to trust this man who didn't tell them anything that was true. That creation occurred essentially 6,000 years ago, although his timeline to the creative event, which is I will speak of here in a moment, is off by 197 years. We are just now 8 years from year 6,000 Yah, and the rabbis would have you believe that we're 208 years away from year 6,000 Yah. So they're off by 197 years, and they think their timing goes back to creation. Creation occurred some 14 to 15 billion years ago. The timeline from God's point of view regarding his relationship with humankind begins with our exit from the garden. And that occurred in 3968 BCE. So Maimonides' starting point is wrong. And he didn't pay any attention to the genealogies that are presented in the Torah for this very purpose of developing a timeline. Instead, being a Muslim, he favored the sanctification of the moon and the magic number 19, and he formed patterns based upon those things to derive his timeline. So if you are a Jew, you need to know that Maimonides, who was the second most important Jew in this process, Akiba being the most and Maimonides being the second most that have created rabbinic Judaism, that both of them were wrong about everything. And that you don't have 197 plus 8 years for 205 total to get your act together. You have less than 8. And during this next 7 years, 2 out of every 3 Jews are going to die. So you don't want to put off or delay your choice in this regard. Gan is a protective enclosure well after life had been conceived on earth. Adam was an adjunct to the garden and an adjunct based upon being given a nesama. So this reads, then he placed, he put, he set the man he had fashioned and formed there for the benefit of the relationship and to show the way. Now, the man that he put there, he could have conceived at any time. He could have taken one of the people outside of the garden. And all he really had to do to make this one man interesting and to justify putting him in this protective enclosure is to give him the nesama, a conscience, this ability to deduce right and wrong, to determine what is true and false, this filter between that is what is productive and counterproductive. Now, you'll also recognize that this was Asher, one of the most important Hebrew words. It's used as a noun and as a verb and as a preposition. And in this case, it means he put him there for the benefit of the relationship and to show the way, to reveal the correct path to get the most out of life. This is Bereshith 2:8. So as I've shared with you, there are so many aspects to this. And I would say the thing that I want you to take away from all of this is to recognize God's story is coming full circle. He presents us initially in our relationship failing in the garden, and he is, after 6,000 years, bringing us back to that garden, a remnant anyway, a select few, so that we can get right what we got wrong. We can make ourselves worthwhile, interesting, reliable, constructive in God's presence. And that the earth is a larger version of the microcosm that was Eden. It's a protective enclosure, specifically designed for life. And that we're not getting off of it to go to any other planet to live until such time as we prove ourselves worthy to God. And then he takes our souls and envelops them in light energy so that we're in a position where we can go off explore the great distances. There was a post today on my Facebook feed that was talking about how science, astronomers think they have found a Goldilocks planet that is 3 times the Earth's size, or 4 times. It's quite large. That could possibly have intelligent life because there's the potential for liquid water, considering the distance and from its star and the nature of that star, and that it is 40 light years away. And 40 light years, considering the scope of the universe that is some 96 billion light years across the part that we know, 40 versus 96 billion. Okay, so that's in our neighborhood, right? Oh, let's go by for snacks and cookies. Well, it would take us, I think the math is correct, it would take us 400,000 years to get there. At the fastest spaceship rocket motor that we have ever invented, with all of the slingshot effects around the sun and around the planets, we go really, really fast and wave our arms and kick our feet and do all the things we can do. It would take us 400,000 years to get to this.
That would mean the cookies are going to be stale by the time we get there.
Cookies, well, yeah, which I think they'll probably be eaten by then. It ain't going to happen. All right. It just, the distances are beyond our comprehension and stupidly beyond our reach. And there is no such thing as warping time. There's no such thing as going through a wormhole. That's not science fiction. It's just fiction. So this is your last and best hope. Get it right here or you're going nowhere. Get it wrong here and you are going nowhere. And nowhere is going to happen quite soon. It's a 8-year window. Okay? So that's where we are. Now, the other thing that I wanted you to understand is that Eden is written in Paleo Hebrew, which is a pictographic alphabet with a first letter being an ain, which is one of the 5 vowels. It's drawn as an eye. So remember I told you we're talking about Eden being a witness? There's proof. It's the eye, to observe. Speaks of being an observant witness. The second letter in Eden is a daleth. In Hebrew, the daleth was drawn as a door. So we're witnessing the doorway to something, a portal to something, an opportunity to go through something that takes us to another place. The third letter, after the ain and the dalet, the eye and the door, is a nun. The nun in Hebrew is drawn in the shape of a sperm. If you prefer, it is a root, although the little seed and the drawing of it, it would be upside down from that point of view. But nonetheless, that's why I say it looks really like a sperm. And a nun means child in Hebrew. And so this is the way to see, to be an eyewitness to, the doorway to life, to being a child, to growing up as a child, to taking root and grow. And so it is a place to witness the ultimate doorway to life, which is Dod's fulfillment as the Son of God of Passover, which is the doorway to life. It is a way to perceive Mokurim, firstborn children. That's the result of Pesach, Matzah, and Mokurim being fulfilled by Dod. And on Pesach, as the Passover lamb, he was crucified, his body, to open that doorway to life on Pesach, such that on Matzah, his nefesh soul carried our guilt into Sheol, a black hole. Speaking of cosmic journeys, never to be seen again, making us appear perfect in God's eyes, expunging all of that nastiness from us so we can be exposed to God and feel great about it. He sees the best in us. And this leads to Mokurim, where God says specifically we are enriched by him, empowered by him, both to a magnitude of tenfold, and adopted into his family. That is what we see behind that doorway to life, which is Eden. It's a pretty remarkable word, isn't it? Oh, that's one statement. We're an hour into our program, and we've covered one statement. And this is even in review of where we were previously in our previous program. So, if you want to be frustrated with my diligence, you probably aren't going to pass muster with what God's looking for. Because I want to tell you, the level of diligence we just applied to this ain't nothing compared to where we're going. So, pour yourself a cup of tea, a cup of coffee, whatever it is that floats your boat. Settle in, join us, be comfortable. We have a lot to learn. We've got a lot to achieve. We've only got 8 years to filter through those who are going to be the helpers, dishing out, if you will, the fruit of the tree of knowledge, and then to purge this final remnant of Goyim and Yehudim, such that we are enabling them to celebrate Dod's return with Yahowah on Kippurim, and then enter the restored garden on Sukkah, such that we can equip them over the next 1,000 years to be trusted, to go explore off this planet. We don't have a lot of time. We got a lot to accomplish. So it's important that we focus on what God is saying. I guess now if we do one verse per show, we should finish this within that 1,000-year window, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think within the 1,000-year window. Not within the 8 years we have remaining.
Not within the 8, no.
But we have time. So Yahowah, who is God Almighty, he enabled life to sprout up and grow. Shamak. Shamak is, and Shamak are related words. The Shamak of Yahowah is Dod. That is the great branch of the tree of lives. And Shamak, the verbal root of it, means to sprout and grow. Dode is the doorway to life. It was that upright pole that what was once a tree that he was affixed to on Passover that opened that doorway to life. Yes, he was crucified, fulfilling Passover on a tree, because he is the Etz Shayam, the tree of lives. And as the main branch, God says that his purpose is for us to grow. He enabled our growth. To grow is to live. To live is to grow. You stop growing, you stop living. He initiated and caused life to increase in a variety of ways and in stature while promoting growth. Hifel means that it was Yahowah who did these things through the object. So Yahowah is the subject. The object here would be Adamah. So you can say that Adamah is the ground of the earth, or you can recognize that Adamah is a title that Yahowah uses, and it's Adamah here, and he is the bloody red man of the earth. And so Yahowah is saying that he enabled life to grow from what is represented by Adamah, this bloody red man of the earth. Or you can just look at it simplistically and say, don't bother me with that prophecy stuff. I don't want to know these connections between things. Just dumb it down to my level. He was allowed to grow from the soil, from the dirt. But if that's all it is, then why is Adamah just the version of Adam? Why does Adam mean red, bloody red color? Why wouldn't he use just eretz? It means ground. Why Adamah? Why the definite article? What does Adamah contribute? Because Adamah is darn near as important to this story of the garden as is the Etz Dayath, the tree of knowledge. They happen to be the same fellow. God is telling you a story that you can brush through and say, yeah, so you wouldn't know Yahweh's name if you're brushing through, because none of the translations present it. And they don't recognize that it says God following it. So it would be, they're going to tell you the Lord God. And then cause life, made life, initiated life. And they don't tell you that Shamak is Dode. So here you have what I call the two fellas. In Bereshith 1, you got the Gadol and the Katan, I think it is, Katan, Gadol and Katan, Mayor, the greater and lesser luminaries. They're the signs for the Mow'ed, the restoring witnesses to the eternal testimony. And then in Bereshith 2, Genesis 2, you have the Etz of Chayam and the Etz of Dayath. Same two guys. And here you have the Shamak and the Adamah. Same two fellas. Dode is the greater luminary. Yada is the lesser luminary, reflecting the greater luminary's light. They both serve as signs for the Moedim, which they happen to be the two fellows that actually fulfill Moedim. The tree of knowledge leads to the tree of lives, and the fellow that is the tree of knowledge happens to be the first person to recognize that Dode is the tree of lives. And oh, by the way, the choder, which is Yada, is specifically presented as the Etza of Dayath. So he is the tree of knowledge. Same two fellows. And here they are again. Shamak and Adamah. Oh, okay, Toad gets the good part. He's the big honking branch that sprouts and grows, that enables life. And, I'm the soil, bloody red man of the earth from which it grows. I'm happy, by the way. I'm just kidding here. I mean, I know that I'm the lesser luminary. He's the greater luminary. I'm the bloody red man of the earth, and he is this massive branch that promotes growth. And he is the tree of lives, and I'm the knowledge that points back to him. Dode's the guy, and you better have fun with the realization that he's the guy, and the best you can hope for is having the opportunity to serve him, because he works with Yahowah, and Dode then wants to work with others who are similarly devoted and committed to learning, who are, as Yahowah's looking for, someone willing to work, to engage, to make a contribution, somebody willing to listen and respond appropriately, and somebody who shows fortitude and is willing to get up when they have fallen so that they're reliable. Dode's looking for exactly the same qualifications that Yahowah is, and Yahowah chose Dode because, he was a fellow who managed to get up every time he fell, who was always willing to listen to Yahowah, who was constantly learning and growing, and whom God could trust and rely upon, particularly in the fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim. And he was a worker. He was a goer. He was a doer. So these are the things. This is how they work together in God's story. I mean, every time you look around, it's the same thing. Yeah. God's got two guys. There's the lesser and greater luminary. There's the tree of knowledge that leads to the tree of lives. There's the Adamah that is the source from which the Shamak sprouts up and grows. Without the Adamah, this bloody red man of the earth, then nobody knows about the tree of lives. You don't know who it is, don't know how to return to it. So they support each other in this role. This is God's plan from the beginning. It's marvelous. This is the cast of God's story, and he wants you to know that story. And as it relates to Adamah, look up the story of what's called the red heifer. And it's the Adamah Parah. Now, Parah doesn't actually make a girly bull. Par is bull, and yes, Parah could be rendered girly bull and therefore a heifer. That's not the way these words work. The bloody red man of the earth, even though Adamah has a feminine ending to it, many, many Hebrew words have feminine, all nouns have a feminine or masculine orientation. That doesn't make them boys or girls, mothers or fathers. It's just a part of the Hebrew grammar. And often when you add the ending, you expand the connotations of things. A great example would be these etz trees. Etz is the tree as it's presented in the Bereshith account. We're going to get to that next. It'll be on our next program because we're already past the hour. But it is etzah when applied to the choder and provided as a spiritual adjunct to the choder's nature. And the tree, etz, becomes etzah, which means that he has the ability to provide counsel and insights on the complete picture that God is presenting. The first person to frame the entire portrait that God has provided and then provide comprehensive counsel on it. It's etz to etzah. Well, Adam to Adamah doesn't turn it into a girly shade of red or doesn't make the man a woman. No. While Adam is man, Adamah is not woman. Okay? It adds nuances to the man that is being discussed, and it makes him a bloody red man of the earth. Okay? So this is God's way of communicating that. par does mean bull, and while para, that AH ending, which is just the hey at the end of the word, what it does is expands our understanding of that bull. And it says that the bull is para, which means productive and fruitful. Now, for a bull to be productive and fruitful, the bull has many children, offspring. And that bull is part of a harvest that is obviously productive and fruitful. And indeed, that is the role of the Adamah Parah. That is the key player in God's story, because ultimately God has three men who are symbolized by three animals. Dode is the ram and also the Lamb of God. I am the bull, and depicted also as the Adamah Parah. And Elia, who is returning, is the goat. And each of them have their specific characteristics. My wife, Leah, presented a song, video set to music and lyrics that explain the nature of a bull and why that symbol suited the restoring witness of the last days that Yahweh has selected to be this bloody red man of the earth who would be productive and who would fulfill Taruw'ah, purging the remnant of Israel so that they could witness Dode's arrival with Yahweh and enter the Gan Eden, this sheltered garden for 1,000 years during the celebration of Sukkah. There are characteristics that are common among bulls that cause God to say that is a good symbol. People should be able to pursue, be able to understand and process the nature of this man, such that you understand his characteristics at this time. You know, a man who is bullish is obviously very positive. We call it a bull market. That would be a positive market. A bullish is aggressive in protecting his own, particularly in protecting women. A bull cannot be a coward. A bull is aggressive. It's forceful. Bulls have interesting characteristics, and there's a whole presentation that Leah has created on my Facebook page, should you be interested in learning about them. So this is the nature of the bull, and that is the Adamah Parah that Yahweh has been sacrificed during the celebration of Taruw'ah on the 24th of September of 2033, year 6000 Yah, and it fulfills the prophecy of Numbers 19 pursuant to the adulterous woman of Numbers 5, so that we can re-enter Sukkah and the garden at that time. So these are the characters in God's story and what he is achieving with them, and it is a delight to pursue them, and we will return to this spot. I think we'll do another program on the same series here later this afternoon. The back held up pretty well. You didn't see me wince a single time. So I think we're off and able to do another one this afternoon. So I thank you for listening. I know I got into a lot of really finite detail, but I think it's by exploring the details that we come to know and understand, and we become what God is looking for. Interesting people that are worthy of his attention over an eternity of time. So thank you for listening.